All right, very good. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the 10K Project. This is a members only event. It will be emailed out to all members and put in the Knowledge Center so that you can catch it later if you are not able to join us live. Welcome to everyone who is able to join us live. And most of all, welcome Mercedes to the 10K Project. We are so excited to talk to you and to learn.
Looks like we lost Tawana. What happened?
Oh, it's Cherie. Hi, everybody. Hi, Mercedes.
Hi.
Hopefully she'll be able to come back on. Oh, no, she's still here.
There it is. I think I got kicked off when you got in, Cherie.
Somehow it was showing
Cherie's
photo, but saying Tawana's name.
That was weird. Okay. So I'm gonna, okay. So we're good. I think we're good now.
Yeah, I think we're recording too. So that's
good. That is weird. My name is on my picture and Cherie's, yeah, that's weird. Let me fix it. I'll fix it, Cherie. I'll fix our name.
Okay. I think people know us by now, but just
I think, yeah, right. We should leave it and see if they realize it.
Oh, goodness. It's like one of those movies where they swap the bodies. You have to live in the other person's body. Yes.
Oh, that's so funny. Mercedes, welcome again to the 10K Project, my dear. Tell us all about yourself and then talk to us about this thing, Air BnB opportunities. But we'd love to hear about you and obviously how you got involved. I mean, we've all heard about it. Many of us have stayed in Airbnbs. I'm sure many of us have thought about, I wonder if I could have an Airbnb. And we have not yet pulled the trigger. My hope is that after you educate us in the space, we will be more encouraged to pull that trigger that we've all been kind of having our finger on for the last few months or years or whatever the situation is.
Yes, that is definitely the goal. I think Airbnb is really a phenomenal opportunity. So a little bit about me. I am actually an international development consultant. I have been working in international development for about 20 years. And my work has really taken me all around the world, traveling here and there and having to stay in all sorts of short-term accommodations. And one of the things that I stayed in a lot when I traveled were hostels, particularly when I was younger and really first starting out as a traveler. I used to do a lot of short-term projects. Many of them didn't pay very well. So I had to find accommodations that were very inexpensive, particularly when the jobs weren't paying me enough to really afford, very nice places to stay, and they themselves weren't paying for my accommodations. Nowadays, I don't really have to worry about that. But back in the day, I definitely had to be quite smart about how I stretched out my contract dollars. And so I was staying in hostels, and there was a point when I had my child very small and decided that I didn't want to be away from him for very long periods of time, and decided that I wanted to stay put. And I was in DC in between contracts. Actually, the contract that I had in Mali was interrupted because they had a military coup. And I had decided to stay at a hostel in DC for a week while I looked for an apartment. And while I was there, the manager quit and walked out and took her entire staff with her. And I said, you know what, I can do this job. I can take over this place. I immediately got on the email and contacted the owner. And I was like, I've stayed here a couple times in between contracts. I stayed in hostels all around the world, told them my whole background, my whole spiel, got the job the same day. Moved my kid in, took over the place. And they were having all sorts of issues with their booking systems. And I knew about Airbnb, had stayed in a couple of Airbnbs. I was like, how about we use Airbnb to run this place? This is in 2014. That's how my relationship with Airbnb got started. Wow. So long story short, when I got my own apartment, a year after I stopped working there, I started doing longer term contracts. My son was older and I could stay away from him for longer periods of time, but I had an animal. a cat that I could not leave alone for very long, because although people might think cats don't like to be around people, they are actually quite attached to people, and they get very depressed if they're alone for too long. But I didn't want anyone in my house that didn't have any, reason to take care of my space. So I offered lower than listing price for my neighborhood if they would agree to take care of my pet. I live in Capitol Hill, DC, and I put my apartment on Airbnb and immediately got listings back to back, back to back, back to back. And it paid for my rent. It gave me additional income that allowed for me to have money to do all sorts of things like grow my investment portfolio, take extra trips, do things with my son that I would not have otherwise been able to do. And I've just found it to be a great additional source of extra revenue. In the pandemic, Airbnb started to lose a lot of its income because of the lack of travel. And when the travel started to open back up, they were looking for ways to get people more invested into the platform and decided to have an ambassadorship program. They had opened it up to host at large and then decided that it was just too many people giving all kinds of random information. So then they decided to really narrow it to their best hosts. And they wanted people who had superhost status, which is people who have a 4.8 or greater rating. I am a superhost, and so I was chosen to be a superhost ambassador. So these are people who have top listings, and we are able to now advise people who are looking to themselves become hosts. So this is what I do. I get additional revenue from Airbnb, people that I myself recruit, and also people who Airbnb send to me on their own on a daily basis. And it's really nice because it gives me an opportunity to get to know people from all around the world who are looking to become hosts and walk them through the process and help them become better able to get to where I am. And it's really interesting that the challenges that people have, the crazy questions that people ask me, and sometimes I'm like, I can't help you with that. You need to call tech support. I don't know what to do with that because some of the questions are so convoluted. But what I wanted to talk to you all today was basically the ins and outs of how to get started on the platform, try to just give you all the basic framework of how Airbnb works, and then field questions, as time allows, because I know everyone's situation is different. Sometimes people don't own a traditional house. They have all kinds of different properties that they list. People have camping spaces, people have RVs, people have boats. And so, depending on what the audience may be interested in, we can go from there in terms of the types of questions that people ask.
Wonderful. And so we'll keep this open forum. So guys, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A so I can better manage them. But feel free to put any question that you have. I'm going to start. Do you have to own the property that you're renting out, or can you be a renter? Are there any rules against being a renter versus a homeowner or a property owner?
You do not. So Airbnb is just a platform. Airbnb itself does not have anything to do with that. The only thing that Airbnb asks is that you have a legal right to have the property on its platform. How you acquire that legal right is between you and whoever owns that property. So if it's not you, you need to make sure that you are going through the proper channels to make sure you have that. So if you're renting from someone, you need to make sure that you're talking to the owner, you're getting whatever, contracts need to be signed. If you're in a city that requires that you have some sort of licensing, like DC just passed a short-term rentals licensing, you need to make sure you have that taken care of, because Airbnb will pull your listing from their platform if they find out that you're in violation, because the company can be penalized. But other than that, the company doesn't have anything to do with that. It is really a tech company. That is it. It is not a company that's a real estate company. They're not going to help you find any kind of properties, which is something that people ask me about all the time. Will Airbnb help me find a property? No, we don't do that. That is on you. So yeah.
Good, very good. So I also hear a lot about different neighborhoods kind of banding together and not allowing other neighbors to have it. They don't want to be neighbors of an Airbnb. Can you talk a little bit about that to us?
That is something that happens. And so many people who have HOAs, that would be something that can be in your HOA contract. So you need to make sure that if you're moving into a community, you read your contract to make sure that that's not in there if you plan on doing Airbnb, because a lot of people don't like the idea of people coming in and out of their community that they don't know. A lot of people are very suspicious of strangers, even though Airbnb does have a lot of safety protocols built into it. And Airbnb is not the type of network that's really going to attract, I would say, sketchy people. Airbnb is mostly going to be used by business travelers, students, international people. It's not the type of platform that I would say, in my experience anyway, is going to really attract someone that's going to be causing a lot of problems. It's not built, it's not designed to attract that type of crowd. But people, I think people don't really understand the technology. They don't understand how it's used. And so they don't understand like who's going to be coming to their neighborhood. So they get sketched out. And so you really do have to make sure you're talking to your neighbors if you're in that kind of a housing where you are tied to other people. And in Washington, D.C. and a lot of major cities, that has been a big problem with a lot of the issues with the licensing that I just got through talking about. In DC, for example, the reason why that short-term licensing was put into place because people were complaining that it was causing the housing crisis that we have here with the lack of housing availability, but it's not actually, it's not really related. If you understand the real estate market, you know that a lot of that has to do with the foreign investment that's going on here, but that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But the average person doesn't really understand all those ins and outs. They just go to their local city council member and say, all these people in my neighborhood have these Airbnbs and I can't find an apartment to rent. So yeah, it causes confusion.
So something happened to me recently. I was booking, I had an event this last weekend and I was booking Airbnb for my best friend to stay in. And the owner, the host called me and said, I see your booking, but I see your booking in Louisville, Kentucky, but I see you're from Louisville. Your profile says you're from Louisville, Kentucky. What are you wanting the property for? Right. And he asked, are you going to have a party? And I was like, no, I'm renting it for my friend. I'm taking care of the reservation, but I'm not going to be the one staying there. I thought that was interesting.
Yes, typically that's not allowed. I would not rent to a local person. And you are not supposed to be renting for someone else. The person that does the booking is supposed to be the person staying in the property. And from what I understand in terms of our insurance, you are not covered if the person that's in the property is not the person that is listed. So typically, say if you made a booking and you brought someone with you, the person that you're bringing with you should be included in your booking. There's a space when you book that you can list everyone that you're bringing with you. Unless that person is a minor, they should be listed on your booking. Because if I have a problem with my property, I'm going to come for you because you're the person that's listed. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, I better not say his name then, because he. Oh, that's very funny. So walk us through from beginning to end. I decide I want to put my house as an Airbnb. How do I start? How easy is it?
Okay. So I actually have a presentation prepared.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen if I may. And I'm going to try to go through this as efficiently as possible. I may skip through some of the slides because it might be a little too long. Can you guys see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
All right. So this is a typical presentation that I would give to a new host to start earning on Airbnb. So as I said, I may skip through some of the slides because some of them might be too much for the hour that we have here. So a little bit of the history about Airbnb, because I do think understanding the purpose of the platform helps people understand how it works and why it works the way that it does. Airbnb was really started by two dudes who had a hard time, getting their friends to come visit them, and just decided that they got tired of dealing with the high cost of hotels, and really literally started renting out air mattresses in their living rooms to their friends when they came to San Francisco. And that's why it's called Air BnB, air mattresses. That's where the name comes from. Pretty straightforward. When you go on the Airbnb platform, you're going to search based on the city, and you're going to be looking for average prices. So if you're going to be hosting, that's how you're going to start. You're going to want to understand your market by looking at what is already there. That is going to give you a good indication as to whether or not Airbnb is going to make sense for you. Is this going to be something that's going to give me enough revenue for it to be reasonable for me to do in the first place? If you're seeing that people in your neighborhood are charging prices that are so low that it's not worth it for you to do, then you know from the jump, this is not a business that I need to even be investing in the first place. Don't try to go on Airbnb and list your property thinking that your house is so beautiful and it's just in the perfect location that people are going to want to stay with you, even though you're charging twice what everyone else is. No, no one's doing that, especially not at this stage when we're in a recession and everything is sky high in the store and gas is $5 a gallon. No one is doing that. That's just not realistic. So make sure you see what's out there in your area and make sure the pricing is going to make sense for you. That's number one. And then you're going to look at the type of property that you have. What amenities do you have? Is what you're offering comparable to what's already out there? And what do you bring that's unique? If no one around you has a swimming pool, for example, and you have a swimming pool, you live in a place that gets really hot in the summer, then that's something that gives you a competitive advantage. That's something that will make you stand out from the crowd. That's something that will make you be more marketable. That's something that you might want to take advantage of. Do you have laundry facilities? For example, in the city, here, not a lot of the older houses have laundry facilities. People might not want to walk the extra block in the 90-degree swampy city weather. You have a laundry in your house, that gives you a competitive advantage. Go for it. That's an extra amenity that you can offer to people. Think about things like that. What else makes you stand out? Like, for example, my house is 3 blocks from the Capitol. That's something that allowed me to keep my place booked. People love that they can just walk to the Capitol and walk to the Library of Congress. They can walk to the Smithsonian in 20, 30 minutes. That may be a long walk for a lot of people, but for people who are tourists and don't want to pay for transportation, that's a great amenity. They can get there easily. They don't have to worry about public transit. They don't have to worry about Uber. That's the type of thing that you put in your listing that makes your listing stand out. Then you're going to customize your listing. So again, talking about the type of people that Airbnb attracts. This is how you get to those types of people, the wording that you use. So you're going to say, for example, if you want to attract college students, you're going to mention that you're near universities. You're going to mention that you're near local libraries. You're going to mention that you're near research institutions. If you want to attract business people, you're going to talk about co-working spaces that are easily accessible. You're going to talk about the Wi-Fi that's in your house. These are the types of things that you list in terms of how you word your communication that's going to make you stand out, that's going to make sure you attract the right type of people. If you want to attract people that are party goers, you're going to talk about the bar scene. You're going to talk about, pizza pubs around the corner. We're not doing that. We don't want people that's going to come to our space and have, headers and tear down the walls. So you got to think about these things. If you don't want babies in your house that's going to, make a mess on your furniture, you don't use, things like family friendly. You don't use those type of words. You don't offer fold out cribs if you don't want people bringing small kids. So you have to think about these things. If you do want to have families, for example, if you want, to offer long-term, listing, there are a lot of people that are doing that now. They are using their Airbnbs to have families come and stay for 6 months at a time. And they are making it attractive to entire families. And they are using that exact type of language. So you're going to think about that in your wording. Where is it located? Who is it going to appeal to? That is how you market your Airbnb property. And then the next thing is, how are you going to get paid? Airbnb offers several types of payment. The fastest payment that I've seen thus far is PayPal. So Airbnb releases the money to you 24 hours after your guest check-in time. So if you set your check-in time for 12 p.m. noon, you're going to get your money released by Airbnb's system 12 noon that next day. PayPal, you get it like 5 minutes after. Now, if you have a direct deposit, it can be 48 hours, it can be 3 to 5 days. It really just depends on what bank you use. I have Chase, it takes me like 2 days to get it. They do also offer Western Union, Payoneer, which is like a debit card, and International Wire. International Wire comes with extra fees. I've never used that, so I don't know how long it takes. The Payoneer and the Western Union I have used when I have been abroad. It does come with extra fees. Well, the Western Union comes with extra fees. The Payoneer doesn't, but the Payoneer, just like the bank draft, takes a couple of days as well. Again, with the marketing, the photography. So picture taking. People have a lot of issues when it comes to taking pictures. Surprisingly, this is something I get the most questions about, how to take pictures of their property. It seems like it would be simple. Just take some pictures with your phone and upload them to the system, but it is something that seems to give people the most difficulty. The pictures are either fuzzy, they're at the wrong angles, they're not showing simple things like appliances. Do you have a stove in your kitchen? Do you have a refrigerator in your kitchen? I'm not seeing it in the photos. Like, people need to see what you have in your house. Where are they going to sleep? You know, is there a driveway? What does the front of the house look like? Basic things. They need to see the property. It needs to be from various angles. It needs to be well lit. There are requirements in terms of the size of the images, JPEG, and, you know, simple things like that. And all that is on the website. So just read what's there, follow the prompts, you'll have no issues. What else? In terms of becoming a superhost. So why is being a superhost important? As I mentioned, you have to have a 4.8 or greater rating. In order to be a superhost, you have to make sure that you are responsible, you accept as many reservations as possible, you do not cancel on anyone, and you get positive reviews. The number one way to get positive reviews is to make sure that your listing is as well written as possible. Make sure everyone knows what to expect from you when they show up. There are no surprises. They know what they're getting. They will leave you a good review. As long as you're upfront and you don't, you know, say, for example, you tell them that you're going to give them linens, and then they show up and then, oh, I didn't get a chance to do the laundry today, there are no linens. Mm-hmm. They're going to be angry. They're going to be like, I showed up and there was no linens. Don't do that. And people do that. I've read reviews, and it's like some of the things that people are complaining about, they're common sense things, you know, that anyone would be upset about. Don't take your guests for granted. You know, these are people that are coming to your home. Treat them as guests in your home. It is a business, but it's a home. You know, the purpose of Airbnb is that it's meant to be personable. And I think, you know, people have gotten to a place where they're looking at it so much as a business that they have forgotten that this is still a person-to-person interaction. You are not a hotel. Even if you have created an LLC, you are not a hotel. They are not looking at you as you are Marriott. They are looking at you as a person whose house I'm in, and they are expecting a cordial person-to-person type of interaction. And I think, yeah, I think that's enough in terms of that information, because I think if I continue, it would be too long in terms of the training. So I'll leave it there, and then we can go over some more questions.
So very good.
You guys have to forgive me. My eyes are really watery today. I just discovered that I have dry eye. And my eyes are water like a faucet these days. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. So yes, I've got a couple more questions, and we'll open it up to see what our community is saying. So what's Airbnb's revenue share of the rental? Do they get a percentage, or do they have flat fees?
Yeah, they do have a revenue share, and I have it written down. I think it's 3%. that they take, and they take it off the top. So when the person makes their booking, the fees are paid at that time. Let me pull up the numbers exactly so I can make sure I'm giving you guys accurate information. But when the person makes their booking, everything is paid immediately. So you're not paying it afterwards. But give me 1 second, let me pull up those numbers for you. Airbnb fees.
I smiled when you were talking about the pictures, because again, I just did this, right? I just booked one, and you have some that are 5 pictures and you have some that are 35 pictures. And you tend to gravitate towards the ones that have the most pictures of the most views. Like you said, I want to see the stove, right? Because I don't want to guess if there is one or not. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is how the fees work. So the host pays a flat fee of 3% of the total booking. And then the guest typically pays a fee of around 14%. And also the guest pays whatever taxes and whatever city fees need to be paid too at the time of the booking. So it can add up. And I'll give you an example. I pulled up one here that I had screenshotted from one of my guests. So at the time, their accommodation was $400. The cleaning fee was $25. Their service fee was $60. The occupancy tax was $72. And that's DC's money. So their total came up to $557.51. And my total out of that was $412.25. So you can see it's a big discrepancy from what they pay to what I get. And the interesting part to me was that what DC got was bigger than what Airbnb got.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Wow. All right, DC, I'm not mad at that. They said we're business too, I guess.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
I have a question.
Yes,
yeah.
Are there, let's say that somebody wants to buy some investment property in order to turn it into an Airbnb. Are there locations that are, for lack of a better word, hot, or, I'm just curious as to some of the analytics with regards to where a lot of people go and use Airbnb.
Really, Airbnb is popular everywhere, honestly. But of course, anytime you're near any type of tourist attraction, anywhere that's very scenic, naturally scenic, and anytime you're near any type of sports venue, those are always good places to be for Airbnb. I see people that I work with that do exceptionally well that are in mountainous areas, that are near beaches. Here, people that are in my neighborhood in Capitol Hill do extremely well. In New York, people that are in Manhattan do very well. People that are in places that have sports arenas in Florida, for example, people that are in Miami do very well.
Very good. Anything else, Sheree?
Yeah, I have another question. So can you tell us a little bit about how many people travel per year and use short-term rentals? And what does the industry look like over the next 10 years?
Oh gosh, I don't have those types of projections at all. What I do know was the last time I looked at Airbnb's business, what I saw was that they did have a decline in 2019, but there was an uptick from 2021, and it seems like it's moving up steadily. We just had a new release of the software earlier this year, about maybe 6 weeks ago, where they did a parsing of the system. So they were trying to make it easier for guests to be able to search based on amenities, because what they noticed was that people on the platform were searching not so much by location, but people were searching more based on certain types of travel. So what they're seeing is that how people are traveling is different. So like people are not saying, I want to go to Miami, for example. They're saying, I want to go to a place that has a yurt, or I want to go to a place
I
that
want the
has
experience. So, and I'll go
yeah,
wherever
I
that
want a
experience
particular
is.
type of place, no matter where it is. So it doesn't seem like Airbnb is slowing down anytime soon. What it looks like is just like the model is changing. And I'm actually going to Collision next week, which is a huge tech conference in Toronto. And our head of guest services is going to be speaking on a panel there about the market. And I plan to ask her some of these types of questions because I'm curious myself about what the long-term trajectory is for the industry, because I'm trying to have me a little Airbnb tiny house village in
Yeah,
North Carolina.
I know a
That's
group
my
of
new thing.
yeah, I know a group of Black investors who were getting together to buy a condo in New Orleans because they were spending so much time going to conferences there. And if anybody's familiar with New Orleans, it's like one central
Yeah.
business district or the French Quarter where a lot of stuff happens. And
Yep.
And they like, in well, the specific person I was telling me invest in different. She's also buying a lake house in North Carolina, I think, as well, because she got tired of renting Airbnbs for her and her family to go twice a year to, you know, be together. So they instead decided to buy a lake house and rent it out, and then they get to stay in it for the 2 weeks that they want to come together as a family. So I also heard another podcaster, white gentleman, who is also doing the same thing with short-term rentals. And apparently there's these group of investors, real estate investors, and that's what they're focused on is the whole experience thing and finding houses in unique locations and turning them into experiences. And I think it's developing into a big business. That's why I was curious and with regards to asking you about that.
One thing I can say, I do know for a lot of major cities in the US that just recently happened over the past couple of months is that Airbnb lost a lot of its hosts because many cities instituted the short-term renter licensing that knocked a lot of people out of the ability to host because people that were renters could not do it. And you can't do it. For example, like here in DC, if you don't own the property, you can't have the license. And also, even if you do own the property, a lot of people did not meet the licensing requirements. For example, a lot of elderly people here who were hosting had multi-level houses where they were living in the basement unit and they were renting out the second and third floors because those floors got higher rent rates. But under the licensing agreement, that's not considered living in the main house. You have to live on the second or third floor in order to get the license. So they didn't qualify. And so when I looked yesterday at the number of Airbnbs that popped up for Airbnbs in DC, it was only like 20 out of hundreds that used to be there. So my friend and I were just talking earlier today, like when we talked to city council, we were like, have you guys even done any projections on how this is going to affect the tourist sector? Because people are not going to have anywhere to stay. You know, people can't afford the hotels here. They're astronomical. Airbnb was the lifeblood of tourism, especially for our young tourists. So it's going to be a problem. People are going to need Airbnb hosts. So if people can get together and buy properties together, because, you know, these houses here are $1.5 million, $2 million easy. You know, they're going to need people to, you know, pool their resources to buy properties. And if people can do it that way, then that would be a good way for them to be Airbnb host.
Yeah, that's actually a great recommendation. I see a couple of my investment club members in the participation list. Y'all know we're gonna be talking about that next week. So get ready, because that's a great idea. We've got a couple of questions. Lakina says, with the sharp increase in rent prices, I've been hearing more about people refusing to leave once their rental period is over. Basically, they start squatting because they are more versed in tenant eviction laws. Does Airbnb help resolve situations like that? Wow, people are doing that?
Do anything Doesn't have anything to do with anything like that. And Airbnb, I mean, you would not be a renter with Airbnb anyway. Airbnb does not make you a tenant because you are a host. You're not a landlord with Airbnb. It's not a renter.
People are not leaving though.
Yeah, but I heard that as well. I've read stories where people are renting Airbnbs and then squatting. It's been in the news.
They must be long-term. They must be long-term renters because you would have to be in a property for over 30 days for that type of protection to even kick in. Because even under a hostel, which is what I managed before, the only time that we ever had that type of situation where we had difficulty getting someone out was if they had been there for more than a month. Because with DC, and DC has very strict renter protection laws. It's very difficult to get people out here.
Yeah, so the other thing is when Twyla came on, she told us the story of her Airbnb. People were leaving drugs in her Airbnb for the next people to come and pick up. So, you know, that's just another cautionary tale as well, is to, you know, just be aware of, like the cleaning woman. Like some people stayed at her Airbnb, they left drugs there for like the next person to come and pick up, but the cleaning woman found them and she ended up having the police come and they did a sting on it to see who was going to pick the drugs up. So
again, I think that goes back to who you are attracting with your Airbnb. Because one, almost 90% of the people that have stayed at my house have been from overseas and have been students who have come to DC to come to like the Smithsonian on holiday. And I do think that oftentimes what I see people that have called me or wrote me with serious issues similar to that have been people who have had their properties listed very, very low prices, have had properties that have already been in sketchy neighborhoods to begin with, and they're listed and with not the best wording. They are not decorated in the best way. So I don't want to come across as being too bougie.
But I get it.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it is what it is.
I get it too. And I am bougie. I'm quite bougie, so that's okay.
I am too. So
yeah, you're gonna attract. I mean, with anything that we do, with any business that we have, we're going after a certain market, right? And how you advertise to that market is going to be the customer that you receive. And so that's for any business. That makes perfect sense. Anonymous says, is now a good time to invest in Airbnb with the anticipated recession?
The thing is, the housing market overall really is a buyer's market. Prices are astronomical. And from what I hear from people, and I don't know how many real estate people we have on the chat, I know many of you are, but from people that I know that are in real estate, everyone says that next year will probably be better to buy. I am not a real estate agent, so I can't speak from my own knowledge. I'm speaking third party, but people have told me, because I am looking myself to buy, that next year is probably going to be better. So I don't know if anyone can corroborate that, but.
If we've got any real estate professionals in the participants list, please feel free to add your comment. Ms. Vivian says, we have a few Airbnbs. We are strict with obtaining information on potential guests. Good.
And I don't do long-term either. So my guests are with me for a couple of days and that's it, because the only time that people have stayed in my house for any extended period is when I have gone abroad, and that is for a few weeks. And they are still the same type of people, young people who are either professionals here for an internship on the Hill or international students here to visit the city to sightsee.
Lakina says, in Texas, you become a tenant after 10 days, and in Michigan, it's 14 days.
Oh my gosh.
That's short.
That's very short.
Yeah. Sharnetta says, what percentage of profit can you expect after all overhead is paid?
Again, the profit depends on your expenses and how much you are charging.
Your price point,
so
right?
That's individual.
And then
And
Anonymous
two,
says, oh, go ahead, Mercedes, I'm
I
sorry.
was going to say too, for a lot of people, I will say, I do think a lot of people overcomplicate Airbnb. People are hiring, cleaners and hiring managers and hiring a lot of staff for one property. I don't necessarily think that's necessary. There's no reason to do all that. If you're not managing multiple properties, unless you're super busy, there's no reason to do that. I mean, Airbnb is a really straightforward platform. It's really streamlined. You can easily manage it yourself. There are ways you can automate things. There's lots of tutorials online, even in Airbnb's own system, that can walk you through things. You don't have to be paying out all this extra money for third-party things. So you can really cut a lot of costs if you just take a little time to learn the system on your own.
So that kind of goes back to what Cherie's question was, and then your response is that Airbnb they do well in all areas, and maybe it's a good idea to start locally first, right? So that you can then take care of your own property before you venture out to those tourist places where you may have to hire a team to come in and be responsible for something.
Right.
But for those
Right.
of us just getting started, maybe we stay as close to home as possible and we clean it up ourselves, and we make the experience wonderful for our potential guests ourselves, and manage everything to see how we like it, to maybe even locally you get that super host status, then you expand, right? Because I can tell you, I pay special attention to super hosts. I actually sort I sort by super host. I'll start there. If I don't see anything I like, then I open it up to others, because I am too looking for a certain aesthetic, right? Not just the experience of the being taken care of. I am looking, my rule is I'm not staying anywhere that don't look as good as where I already live. So, so if it's not better than home, I don't want to be there.
Yes.
So, sometimes I change that. But Talisha said, what criteria garners the superhost status? So you said the score of 4.8 on the reviews that they leave. Is there anything else that is that the only thing?
That is it. That is it.
So based on reviews. So that's the other thing. We have to be sure we're leaving reviews, right? Because they're also leaving reviews for us.
Yes. Yeah. And the way the reviews work is you can't see each other's reviews until you have both left a review.
Right. And I just did my review for the stay I booked today. And I realized that I couldn't see hers until I did mine, and she couldn't see it either. What I didn't know, so this is actually perfect timing, is I'm assuming I get a rating as well. Where do I see my rating at? That's why I don't know where my rating is.
It'll be on your profile.
Is it? Okay.
It'll be on your profile. And I think a lot of people don't realize too that a 4 is a low rating.
Well, yeah.
A 4 is a low rating. Anything less than a 4 is a low rating. So I think sometimes people think like, oh, I'll give someone a 3 and that's like average. No, 3 is failing. It's like C. A C is failing. So if you're giving people anything less than a C, you need to really not like them.
That's a very good point. Anonymous says, are there any other sites to list properties other than Airbnb?
I know you're not asking me that. There are other sites. I've actually never used another site, but there are. I am not going to tell you who the competition is. You can have to do that research on your own.
Understood. That's fair enough. Let me talk about something I haven't heard of it recently, but I know several years back it was a big thing. Discrimination of Black people when trying to book on Airbnb. Has the company taken care of all of those concerns? Have they done a better job of ensuring that doesn't happen?
Yes. So how Airbnb handles that is that you cannot see the photos of each other until the booking is complete.
Okay.
So you don't know the race of the person that is contacting you, and they don't know your race either. Airbnb takes any type of discrimination very seriously. I would say there are exceptions, gender, for example, like for me, I live alone, a single female. I do have a male child, but I rent his room when he is at his father's house. So because the rest of the house is shared space, I can say that I want to have only a female in the house with me. but that is the only type of situation that you can say gender specific when you have shared space with the person. Anything other than that is considered a violation of EEOC, and they will boot you off the system.
Very good. Miss Vivian, did you want to come? Did you want to ask a question? I see your hand raised. Was that by mistake, or did you want me to bring you on audio? Oh, you said so funny, Mercedes, in regards to competition. Okay, raising your hands, mistake. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, she's not going to give the competition up, nor should she. But you could always ask Professor Google.
But that's a good point that, you know, Airbnb is, from my understanding, the 800-pound gorilla. I do know a little bit about the competition because of a business plan that I had to write. But you know, Airbnb is the 800-pound gorilla. So when people are searching for short-term rentals, my question to anybody who owns property is, where would they start? And if it's Airbnb, then you also need to potentially think about like where the traffic is as well. Just like if you have any other kind of product, you think, where's the traffic? I'm going to go to where the traffic is. Mercedes, I don't know if you want to talk about that as well.
Yeah. One of the great things about Airbnb too is that they really do push your listing. They're really great about making sure, especially if you have really good reviews. You know, I love being a superhost because I know that as soon as someone searches for Capitol Hill, DC, my listing is going to be the first thing that pops up on that first page. They are really good at, you know, making sure that they send out emails constantly to people. Oh, are you still interested in Capitol Hill listings in Washington, DC? Check out, you know, this listing. If I do anything to tweak my listing, or if I do, you know, anything to tweak my pricing, they're going to send out an alert to anyone that was searching in this community. They're really good at just making sure that they are constantly pushing the content to anyone that may be searching for listings in this area. And I think that that's something that's, you know, very useful because you're getting free marketing. All you're doing is listing your property on the platform. And even if you're not actively, you know, trying to market yourself, you have, you know, a whole team of people out there that's making sure that your property is being marketed for you. You can't beat that.
Can you talk a little bit about the shared space model? That's an interesting concept. I'm as you said it, I was sitting here thinking, would I share my space? I've got a spare bedroom. No one's almost ever in it, right? Maybe weekends. Would I share my space? I mean, I'm sitting on money, I'm giving money away, right? Money's sitting on the table with an empty bedroom.
You know, for a lot of people, that's how they pay their mortgages. That is how a lot of people pay their mortgages. And as I was talking about earlier too, with the licensing thing here in DC, it's really sad because for so many low income people here in the city, that is how they paid their rent. And it's really hitting a lot of the minority communities in the city quite hard. And, you know, these city council meetings, when they were pushing this thing, DCRA, the regulatory association here was pushing this licensing, I'm actually quite furious because I know that it was all about these foreign investors. I mean, the crony capitalism that goes on here is just, that's why I'm moving back to North Carolina, actually, because it just really frustrates me because you know, like no one's looking out for people here. There used to be a rule here in DC that if you rented property and the property went up for sale, you had the first advantage to buy that property. And that was one of the, you know, protections in place for renters in DC. And that was overturned in 2005. Wow. And ever since then, the real estate market has just been booming and the gentrification has just been off the chain in this city. And it's just really sad because, you know, like all these things, they keep talking about this pathway to the middle class and protecting, you know, people of color. And you're just like, it's
not real. It's not happening. Yeah.
We got to protect ourselves. We got to protect ourselves. We got to work together. And, you know, I do believe that, you know, if you're able to use Airbnb as a way to invest in real estate and to, get property, then it's a smart thing to do. And I certainly am planning to do that. We have so much property in North Carolina that's just sitting there vacant. No one's using it, no one's doing anything with it. And yeah, I mean, why not? Why not take advantage and use it? You can, the hostel model, when I was a hostel manager, we would have rooms where we would have 8 bunk beds and each person would be paying $400 a month. $400 a month. And these are college students. $400 a month. They're not doing anything to tear the house down. They're just going to school. They're going to school in the day. At night, they're out doing their thing. Do you know how much revenue we generated? But, these aren't Black people. We never do these types of things because we have been programmed to think that we have to follow a certain way. And if we don't follow that way, then we're not making it. And we're being programmed to do this by the very same people who have generated wealth completely differently. We talked about this, I believe, one time before in another one of our Monday night meetings. But yeah, I mean, cohabitating and working together and pooling our resources is definitely, I think, the way to go. And the sharing economy is the modern way to do that. And I think Airbnb is definitely a great resource. It's already been built. It's not something that we have to reinvent. Why not take advantage? It's a smart system. The tool works. It's very efficient. It's very streamlined. I have been using Airbnb since 2014. I have never had an issue. I have never had any problem with any person that I've ever hosted, either in my house or when I was using it to manage the hostel. And I have hosted hundreds of people. Anyone can look at my profile page. I have hosted hundreds of people. I have never had an issue. So, I mean, I do know that there are horror stories out there. There's always going to be some drawbacks to everything. But I think the benefits of the system far outweigh the risks. And I really think that, for us as a community, it's something that we can use to our advantage.
Yeah. Very good. Tusada says, did the photo thing change recently? I was asked last year to add a photo because I didn't want to have one in case of discrimination. So they cannot see my photo until I have confirmed booking. No, so I guess you have to have a photo there, but no one sees it until after the booking is confirmed.
Right. But there are people who still don't have one. So I'm not sure if it's required because I have plenty of hosts that don't have one. Okay. I know for me, I don't rent to anyone that does not have a photo. So I don't think that Airbnb requires a photo, but there are many hosts that require a photo. In terms of being a host yourself, I think it's bad form to be renting property to people and then not have a photo. I just think that it's unprofessional. And I always tell my hosts that you want people to rent from you. It's the issue of trust. Would you want to be staying in someone's house and you have no idea what they look like? Yeah, because they're not going to see it until after they make the booking. But if I'm coming to your house, I want to at least know what to expect when that door opens. To me, it's just, it would be weird. It would just be very weird. And I would be uncomfortable going to someone's house and not having any indication of what I'm going to see when I open that door. But in terms of the discrimination, if say you booked with someone or you booked someone and then there was a cancellation all of a sudden, Airbnb is going to know why. Why is there a cancellation? If there's no valid reason, you're going to have a strike against you. And how the strikes work, one, there's $100 penalty for the first time. The second time it's like $250. It goes up. And for superhost status, you can't get superhost status for a year if you have a cancellation. And each time there's a greater and greater penalty. So there's a lot of things in place to make people avoid canceling on each other. And so Airbnb is tracking you, they're penalizing you, they're monitoring you. And if they're seeing, okay, there's a pattern here, it's looking like this person is canceling every time there's a Black person, or this person's canceling every time there's an Asian person, they're going to pull you from the system.
Okay.
They're on it. They definitely are very on it. The company has a lot of very liberal views overall, just politically, in terms of its lobbying, in terms of its political slant overall, and just the founders and everything that they're involved in. So yeah, they're very much anti-discrimination.
Donna said, I just recently bought a condo in North Carolina near the beach, and the only problem that I had was a group of Black guests. They were smoking weed, and I had to call the cops because they were 4 hours late checking out. She says, I'm starting to do long-term, 3 to 6 months, and my target audience is people waiting for their homes to be built. Those type of people are great guests, she said.
Yeah.
Very good.
You know, I
Go
don't
ahead.
know why we gotta be like that sometimes. It's
Yeah, because can you extend? Is it easy? Like if I can't leave, like I thought something, the flight was delayed, right? And I know in advance, I should be able to reach out and kind of extend, or
make
even
a second,
something off platform, right?
They can make a second booking as long as you don't have your spaces available.
Okay.
But Airbnb, one of the new tools that was just added into the system was a way for people to split up their bookings. So like how she has multiple months, now in the system, you can have it broken up so that there's, instead of 1 6-month stay, there's 2 months, 2 months, 2 months.
Okay.
And also you can have multiple months in the same city. So those two things weren't an option before last month. Those are both new features.
Good. Ms. Vivian said, what about renting your garage as an Airbnb?
So every city has different rules on what's considered a habitable space. So you have to look at your zoning body and see what they will issue a occupancy certificate to. In DC, I know that that's not allowed. The space has to have certain types of walls. There has to be windows. There's all kind of rules as to what the city will issue a certificate of occupancy for. So you have to look at your particular city because every place is different.
So you've got to do that research yourself. That's not somehow built in the Airbnb platform.
No, that's not
city.
The platform. No.
Okay. Chandra says, good evening. You mentioned something about living on the second level. If I had a 2-story house with a one bedroom basement apartment, would I be allowed to Airbnb that basement? So you want to go over that again? You were referring to a certain city where that was the rule.
Yes, I was referring to DC where that was the rule. And that's only because of DC's new licensing law. And DC has forced Airbnb to honor that licensing. So yeah, DC took Airbnb to court. So Airbnb has to make sure that everyone that's in DC has to have that license. And if they don't, Airbnb has to pull them from their system. And in order to get that license, you have to follow DC's protocols. And one of the protocols is that if you have a multi-level house, you cannot live in the basement. You have to live on what they consider to be the main level, which is the 2nd or 3rd floor.
Very good. This was very informative. Thank you so much, Mercedes. Any other questions for Mercedes? This was awesome. Chandra says, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we got enough information to get started, y'all.
I want to give you guys my referral link. So where can I put that at?
Put it in the chat, and then we'll also, when Cherie sends the replay out in the newsletter to members, we'll add it there as well. So if you want to email it to Cherie, she's cwarwick@the10kproject.com. We'll add it into the newsletter when we send the recording, but go ahead and put it in the chat for everyone here as well.
All right, let me type it.
Yeah, tonight was great. Thank you so much, Mercedes.
Thank you.
And I hope that everybody has their plans. If
I think
this is
between
an income stream.
Between last Tuesday, Cherie, and this Tuesday, this is what you call the 1-2 punch.
This is the 1-2 punch.
Yep,
Yes,
Lakina did her thing last time, and now we got Mercedes.
Yes.
We got enough to get us started.
Yes.
Wonderful. We're gonna wait for Mercedes to put the
Yeah,
Say
and I actually heard somebody today that I'm like, ooh, I got to get her on too. She's another good one. So more to come. I'm gonna move in silence, like Tawana said.
That's it.
Move in silence until
Move
I
in
get her
silence.
book. But the person I heard today was like, I'm like, oh, the community's gonna love this one.
All right, so everybody, if you want to save.
Did my thesis presentation today too, so I'm like,
Oh, wow, congratulations.
like a zombie tonight too, so.
Well, we could not tell. Black excellence showing up and showing out. If you guys want to copy that link, if you want to save the whole chat, down at the bottom where you can write your message, there are 3 little dots. If you right click on that dot, you can save the entire chat. Or if you want to just copy that link in that Mercedes put in there. So that's the referral code. Nice. I'll give you another minute to do that. And so tonight, 8 o'clock, Bet on Black Pitch. The company, I think I told you guys, is a young woman, Black hair care, not a product, marketplace, education, good stuff. Came from a good, I'm going to tell you more than I should, but she moved to Colorado, was the only Black person in her town, made the mistake of taking out her braids prematurely, and then couldn't find somewhere to go. So we could all relate to that, right? And so that's how this business idea was born. And so just an awesome idea. I think it's going to be a great time this evening. So if you can come back and hang out 8 p.m. for the Bet on Black pitch. Thank you again, Mercedes. We appreciate you. To everyone for coming out. We appreciate you guys as always. Cherie, drive safely, and I will see you all back here in 1 hour. All right, everyone, have a good night.